Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another really cool Aulita Heroes model, and you might be looking at this and you might think, did you not already review this? Well, kind of, but this is a new updated version of their T-Rex. They have given us quite a bit of a bulkier appearance for this one, and you'll also be able to notice that we have a different paint scheme on this because this is actually a special version of the paint scheme. This isn't the standard paint scheme you would get if you ordered it. You'd probably get that greenish coloration we saw in the original version. So if you are interested in alternate paint schemes on the models, you can contact Aulita Heroes and request a different paint scheme, and of course it would be a little extra, but they can give you a different coloration for your model. But again, we have a really cool brownish coloration that is on this one, and a very, not very different look actually, but a bit of a different look. Definitely a lot bulkier and a lot bigger than the other one was. And I will bring the older one in here to compare with this one here in a little bit, but I think this one as a whole just looks more intimidating than the older one did because it's just so beefy. It's very, very intimidating looking as a whole. There is one thing that's a little bit different about this one compared to the older one as well, and that's the fact that this one doesn't stand so well, not like the original one did, because of the fact that the body has now been amped up in size and it's quite a bit bulkier. The body's kind of top heavy, so you can see it kind of falls forward. So they, yet again, just like with the Carnotaurus, supply you with a stand to prop your dinosaur up on when you are displaying it. So you just would want to, lean the chest on it there. I'm looking at it through the camera, so I probably don't have it in the best spot, but it's there. It's holding it up for now. But again, the figure looks really cool, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can see that overall we have that kind of same menacing sort of appearance that we had for the older one. But again, it definitely is a bit bulkier than the original one was. The head looks kind of small compared to the neck, but it still is a bit larger, I think, than the initial version was. You can see all sorts of the same, type of detail throughout, as we have the really nice skin texture, that kind of bumpy, almost like ridge-like or osteoderm-like skin texture throughout, as we have lots of bumps and everything, giving it, again, kind of a vintage sort of old-school feel, but at the same time a really cool, very stylized feel. We, again, have an articulated jaw, like we had for the older one, and you can see we can get the jaw open really wide this time. And again, the jaw works really nicely. Look, you can close that pretty much to any area you would choose to, and it looks like potentially both the upper and lower jaws move with this one. As you move back here into the neck, you can again see how the dinosaur increases in size quite drastically. Like, that is a very big and bulky neck. I really love the Aulita Heroes style and how cool their dinosaurs look. Like, they always create the most interesting looking designs for their dinosaurs, and pretty impressive that they were able to do that with the T-Rex already and now update it with a totally different sort of an impressive and stylized look. But also you can see, again, quite a bit of variation of blacks and lighter browns and stuff here through the face before I even move back to the neck, and it transitions nicely to a lighter tone kind of for the lower jaw. But just looking through there, again, you can see all kinds of variation of color, and it also has kind of a nice shine to it, something I don't really recall the older one having. And the eyes are definitely painted again with those dark tones of color. I can see a little white in there as well, something that you often see on the Aulita Heroes models. But as you move back again into the neck, you start to see variation of like reddish browns and stuff through the course of the body, as well as blacks kind of, designing and, transitioning back and forth here. Again, we have that big bumpy sort of a look here as we move back into the neck region of the Rex. You have all kinds of ridges and everything moving down, kind of like sharp osteoderms moving down the course of the body, and we continue to see that ridge-like look here moving along the back. You can see kind of like spikes here running along the back of the T-Rex. We also have sort of like a scoot-like appearance running along the side here, and then more kind of ridges and osteoderms and stuff moving down here toward the shoulder area, and just tons and tons of variation of color. Like, oh, look at all of that color variation through the course of this Rex. And of course you also have areas of articulation moving down. You straight away have this spot of articulation here in the neck. As you move down, you've got another spot right here, and then you kind of have like a floating area here just to keep the articulation and neck quite consistent. But you can see it moves very nicely. You can get up and down quite beautifully, even left and right a little bit there. And then as you move down here into the body, you again have that floating area, but you also have the articulation in the arms You can move them forward and back, and also out away from the body a little bit. You can see that the arms look, even though they're nice and small for a T-Rex, they still have some bulkiness to them. You've got the elbow sculpted up back there, some nice small fingers. The nails are painted with kind of like a light brown. They as well look really quite nice. And then as we move back up here into the stomach, we even see some hints of like greenish tones, similar greens to what we actually saw on the original Rex that I have. But again, look at all the color added. We have like spots and everything, and like reddish browns, and man, there's just tons and tons of color on these Aulita Heroes models. I'm always just beyond impressed with how good the paint apps are on these. You also, again, have an area of articulation here in the stomach region. You can see it kind of moving around, go up and down as well. And these Aulita Hero models, if you are unfamiliar with them, they all have this very kind of trademark style of articulation where it's very obvious that they have articulated joints, but it looks really cool. Again, it just screams Aulita Heroes at this point. But as you move along the back, again, we have more of those kind of ridges and everything moving down here into the hip region, heading out into the tail. You have like some skin creases and stuff right there. Moving down into the thigh, we have kind of like a scoot-like appearance running down, almost like an armored sort of a look running down the front of the thigh. Some more of those bumps and everything moving down. And again, a plethora of color variation moving down toward the knee. You even have like some variations of yellows and stuff down here in the knee area. Again, you can see like the separation here of the joint of the knee, because that's how they articulate their figures. But what's interesting is you can actually move that kneecap around. Look at that. You can actually move that very impressively, because there's quite a bit of range of movement to it. You also have the calf muscle there as you move down, though, and then you lead down into the foot. And one thing that's really cool about this is not only do we have the articulation in the knee, again, upper and lower part of the knee, you also have the area of articulation here in the ankle, which can swivel and then move back and forward. But we also have articulated toes on this T-Rex, and that's something we didn't have on the previous version, which is really cool. And not only do you have articulated toes, but you actually have 2 spots of articulation per toe. You've got a spot there at the foot and then halfway through the toe, which allows you to bend the toes and, again, increase your possibilities as far as dioramas go. And we do have dew claws back there, but those don't articulate. And then leading back up here into the tail, you again have an area of articulation right here for the tail. We continue to have that kind of ridge-like look, that spiky look here, moving along the back of the Rex. We see more of that reddish brown leading out. We've got another area of articulation right here, and then another area right here. And again, it can all move very nicely. You have lots of mobility for your T-Rex as you lead out into the tail. And then we end in a very nice tip there for the tail. It honestly has such a kaiju-like look to it. It's so impressive. Even here running along the underside, you can see how nice the actual sculpt is. You can kind of see like some muscle definition here in the chest. And again, how incredible the paintwork is. And I actually really quite like that glossy look that we have going on for the underside of this one. It's super cool looking. Almost gives it like a slight wet look, almost kind of making it look slightly amphibious. But as you lead over here to the opposing side, again, you can see pretty much the same style of sculpt, same style of paint, being that it is an articulated dinosaur figure. You're not going to see very much difference over here compared to what we had just seen on the initial side. But I would honestly say this is equally as impressive, maybe even more impressive than the first Rex that I had taken a look at here on the channel from Aulita Heroes. And this one, again, just looks absolutely incredible. Definitely another awesome addition to my collection, but in general, it's really cool to see Aulita Heroes updating their figures and giving us different versions of them. So next up, we're going to go ahead and jump to a comparison with this and the older Rex, because I'm really intrigued to see the two together. So first of all, I guess I should retract my statement earlier about this not being able to stand. As long as you get it in a tripod position and kind of lean it back there on the tail, it can actually stand in perfect vintage style. That looks awesome with it standing like that. But again, here is a comparison with the older version of the Aulita Heroes T-Rex, and you can see a huge size difference. Obviously, the newer version is way bigger than the older one, and I thought it seemed a little bit bigger there when I was reviewing it, but I didn't pull the older one out quite yet. I hadn't taken a look at the two together, so I wasn't sure just how different the size was, and clearly there is a pretty massive size difference between the older and newer versions of the T-Rex. And you can see just in general, like there's a lot of difference between the two. I thought maybe it was just like a slightly updated version, but it almost looks like an entirely different sculpt altogether. The entire head, although looks similar, looks very different. The neck looks different. Even the arms are different from each other. Obviously, the legs are very different. Even the tails look different. So I guess I should know better than to assume that maybe it's a slightly resculpted figure, and now this proves that the entire figure is pretty much different from the older one, which is really cool to now have two different versions of the Aulita Heroes T-Rex. I kind of feel like I've got like a male and a female here, and maybe the female is just a bit larger than the male is, because the one with the brownish coloration just seems so much more female-like to me, but they look absolutely as epic as it gets next to each other. As far as a size goes, for a length from the tail to the snout, you are looking at about 13.5 inches, or around 34.5 centimeters, and then for a height to the top of the head, about 6 inches, or around 15 centimeters, maybe a little bit over. For a size comparison, even though we already technically did one size comparison, but here's another, because we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our newer version of the Aulita Heroes T-Rex. And you can see again, the size difference is quite impressive between these figures, and the Aulita Heroes T-Rex is larger than every other figure that we have here standing before it. But for another comparison, here is the Aulita Heroes Carnotaurus next to their T-Rex, and you can see now the size difference is extremely impressive because the new Rex is so much larger than the older one. But for another comparison, we've got the Aulita Heroes Styracosaurus now next to the newer T-Rex, and these two could definitely make some really cool dioramas together. And in fact, if you have the older Rex and the newer Rex, you could create some kind of like really cool, maybe like hunting scene or something with the two Tyrannosaurs trying to attack this Styracosaurus. Super cool to see all of these amazing looking, very stylized dinosaurs together. I just love the Aulita Heroes style. And then for one extra comparison, we have the randoms here, again with the Collect A Dimetrodon, the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, and the Schleich Diabloceratops coming in here for a comparison with this newer version of the Aulita Heroes T-Rex. So this brand new Aulita Heroes version 2 Tyrannosaurus Rex is really quite fun, again just like the original one was, and maybe even cooler looking than the original one. They've kind of amped up that stylized look of this one with lots of kind of spikes and ridges and everything running along the back, giving it just a big, bulky, mean-looking appearance, which I really love. And on top of that, again, still giving it that almost like an 80s monster movie style look. Like, this is kind of what I would have expected a T-Rex to look like if there was some sort of like an 80s dinosaur horror movie. I would expect it to pretty much look like this. So I love the style of this. I love the overall design. Incredibly cool, yet again, on the part of Aulita Heroes, and just how creative they are when it comes to giving their dinosaurs that specific style. I absolutely love it. The increased size of this one is also quite fun. I like the fact that it's quite a bit larger than the older one, quite a bit bulkier, just making it look yet again more impressive as a whole. The fine detail looks really good through the course of the model as well, just as crisp as it always is when it comes to an Aulita Heroes release. On top of that, we have tons of articulation, and it all works really quite nicely, really quite smoothly as a whole. And we also have a really cool paint job for this one. Again, this is kind of one of those custom paint jobs that you can inquire about. You have special color versions you can purchase because you don't always have to have the coloration that you have with the original release. You can request a different paint scheme, and that's exactly what we have here with this really neat brownish coloration. Again, so much color on this, and definitely a really nice, very appealing to the eye coloration, still giving it that kind of dark and gritty feel, but with tons of really subtle, slight differences in coloration. So as a whole, yet another insanely cool Aulita Heroes release, definitely something that I'm beyond excited to now have in my collection, and another extremely cool addition to the Aulita Heroes line. So if you are interested in picking up this version of the T-Rex, I will include a link in the description to the Aulita Heroes Etsy shop, where you can head on over there and grab yourself one of these very cool Tyrannosaurs today. So make sure you check that link, go grab this Rex, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.